Okay, let's jump right into this explainer where we are going to completely demystify the UBPR flows framework for Treasury management. It's actually really fascinating because for a lot of organizations out there, Treasury is dangerously misunderstood as just some back-office cash counting function. But today, we are shifting that view entirely. We're going to look at Treasury as a highly governed, resilient enterprise discipline, one that literally transforms raw cash flows into controlled, accessible liquidity.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're covering 1. Beyond counting cash. 2. 5 essential Treasury questions. 3. Ownership through PPL Fabric. 4. Day in life and edge variations. 5. The technology quilt. And finally 6. Maturing your Treasury operations. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. Beyond counting cash, the paradigm shift. To truly understand this shift, we have to look at the North Star of Workstream 730, which is the UBPR flows designation for Treasury. I absolutely love this because it grounds all that dense technical jargon into one crystal clear purpose. See the cash, anticipate the need, secure the funding, control the exposure, protect the value, and crucially, always preserve the evidence.
Now you might be wondering, why is that North Star so incredibly urgent? Well, because without it, enterprises fall into the same persistent traps over and over. A classic one is mistaking mere cash visibility for actual accessible liquidity. You know, just because you can see a big balance on a screen doesn't actually mean you can use it. It might be trapped by exchange controls. Another massive trap is buying a technology quilt before even defining an operating model. We've all seen companies buy shiny new software hoping it'll magically fix a fundamentally broken process. But let's be real. Vendor feature lists can never substitute for actual accountability.
Section 2. 5 essential Treasury questions. The core mechanics.
When it comes down to those core mechanics, it really all boils down to 5 fundamental questions that every single enterprise has to constantly and reliably answer. You can't just casually ask, hey, how much cash is available? You must have a rock-solid, trusted enterprise answer that precisely distinguishes a simple ledger balance from pledged or trapped cash. You also need to know exactly where that cash is, what liquidity is going to be required under stress, how you're going to manage any shortages, and exactly which financial risks threaten your value. And that builds into this absolutely critical nuance, the massive difference between cash visibility and liquidity assurance. Simply seeing your cash balances, meaning, sure, your data is timely and complete, is an entirely different universe from having the assured, accessible liquidity you need to actually meet obligations during, say, a sudden bank outage. Visibility is the prerequisite for sure, but assurance? Assurance is the outcome that keeps the business alive.
Section 3. Ownership through People Fabric, the human element. Because software alone absolutely cannot provide accountability, we rely on a foundational concept called People Fabric. This is a non-negotiable principle. It states that if a Treasury process exists, an accountable human owner must exist for the outcome, period. Even if a highly sophisticated AI agent performs the actual activity, a human remains fully accountable for the purpose, the controls, and the ultimate result.
And you can see how this fabric is woven through very distinct roles. You've got the accountable owner, who owns the final outcome, the performer, who's executing the work, the decision owner, choosing among alternatives, and the approver, providing that independent authorization. But critically, there's always an escalation authority. This ensures someone is explicitly authorized to take action when things go wrong, like during a sudden cyber incident. Simply put, no process is ever allowed to exist as an orphan.
Section 4. Day in life and edge variations, the operating process.
So, how is this human accountability actually mapped out in the field? First up, we use the day in a life, or DIL. Think of this as the ultimate translator. It takes abstract corporate speak and turns it into tangible, everyday scenarios. It describes exactly how a person responds to a real business situation to produce a specific outcome. For example, Treasury analyst establishes the daily cash position. It is an observable, measurable event, not just clicking a system menu.
Designing a governed DIL follows a really strict logical sequence that carefully paces the cognitive load for the team. First, you name the scenario and outcome. Then, you define the triggers and inputs. Third, you sequence the work and assign the people fabric we just talked about. And finally, you embed the controls and measures. Doing this ensures every single activity has a clearly assigned owner and built-in guardrails.
But let's be honest, the real world is messy, right? And that brings us to edge variations, or edge VX. A standard DIL is great, right up until a bank statement goes missing, or a foreign government suddenly restricts your cash. We must explicitly govern these legitimate, completely expected deviations in advance. It is so much better than relying on risky, undocumented workarounds in the heat of the moment.
Section 5. The Technology Quilt. Tools and AI.
With our people and our processes clearly defined, we hit a completely non-negotiable rule. Business architecture before application architecture. You absolutely must map out your business outcomes, your controls, and your DIL variations first. Applications and AI are just accelerators. If you reverse this order, you are letting software dictate your enterprise controls, which is honestly a recipe for disaster.
And when we start weaving artificial intelligence into this, those guardrails have to be airtight. AI in Treasury isn't just some fun science experiment. It's handling the lifeblood of the company. It must always be anchored to a specific deal and a human owner. We have to define explicit prohibited actions, clearly show uncertainty, retain a human escalation path, and most importantly, it absolutely must have tested, safe failure paths. I'm talking about a literal kill switch for when things inevitably go off script.
Section 6. Maturing your Treasury operations, the CWR Plus journey.
So how do we put all these pieces together? We do it through the CWR Plus maturity journey. And remember, maturity here is about your operating capability, not how shiny your software is. You start at the crawl stage, focusing purely on basic visibility and control. Then you walk to standardize and integrate those processes. You hit run when you're actually optimizing decisions. And finally, you reach the plus stage. This is the absolute cutting edge, where a governed AI Treasury decision twin is continuously modeling constraints and scenarios all under human authority.
To wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a provocative, enduring test. Can your enterprise truly trace every single material Treasury outcome back through a governed framework? Can you trace a settlement back to an authorized decision, an accountable owner, and a specific day-in-life scenario? Or, if you're being completely honest with yourself, are you still just counting cash and hoping for the best? It's a profound challenge. Really take a moment to think about where your organization stands today.